Hey everybody, this is my new friend Jose Ramos, and for the purpose of this, my new best friend. How you doing, Jose?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah, excellent. Hey, Jose and I are part of a giant group of people um, around the country who have been harmed by the way the Bank of America has handled the payroll protection loan program with respect to forgiveness. Uh, in the interest of a full update, 2 days ago, I just got a letter that was very weirdly written that I'm here helping my mom here in Georgia. And at first, in the way they wrote it, Jose, was it said uh, um, house rejection or house. It's something that implied that it had something to do with our house. But I
Hmm.
thought, what is this? It was strange, and but then I looked at it and I thought about the circumstance, and I thought it's not strange at all. Um, and it doesn't mean what I thought it meant for the first like 5 seconds, right? So anyway, I opened it and it turned out that they didn't say it outright until the second letter, but the first letter basically says the SBA paid off the entire loan, principal and interest. Bravo. Now that's the second one. The second PPP I got is what they done. The first one is still outstanding, and they were leaving these calls, and every time I would call them I say, you realize that you're playing with a trip to jail because the way this has been handled. uh with that piece of information, Jose, tell your story with us and how it happened to you and where you're at.
Okay, I run a small business that works with people who live with dementia and Alzheimer's, and we've been doing this for over 5 years. And during the pandemic, many people stopped coming to work. These are the caregivers at nursing homes, assisted living facilities, for fear of contracting the virus. And some of those were people who were working with us. And what they required of us is that we up to pay. So in January of 2020, we started paying them more money with benefits. And just about that time, we got a notification from the Bank of America alerting us to this federal program derived from the CARES Act, which was going to incentivize and help small businesses like us. And they were encouraging us to apply. We went online and we read more about it from the Small Business Administration and convinced ourselves after asking questions of SBA people online as to whether we qualified, would this be something that was adequate for us, and we were assured that it was. So we proceeded to follow the Bank of America exhortation and on their website uploaded all the appropriate documents. And that led to a promissory note between Bank of America and ourselves that stipulated what the Bank of America was going to do and what we had to do. And as long as those conditions were followed correctly, you were pretty much assured that you would be given a loan forgiveness or that your loan would convert to a grant, meaning that it would be forgiven. When in the promissory note, it stated that the first thing that the Bank of America was going to review us in a timely manner. And sure enough, within a few days after we had submitted that, they told us that we were approved and they were putting money in our bank, and they uh, told us that we had to spend that money very, very quickly in a short period of time for labor to continue our business, and we did so. And they were telling us that those were the requirements of the Small Business Administration. All that was done. And then after that came a time of waiting. Um, Months turned into half a year, and then that turned into a year. And then we started seeing from the Small Business Administration notifications that they were opening a forgiveness portal and that you had to apply to that forgiveness portal within a short period of time. And then us, like everybody else, decided to attempt to do that. We couldn't because we were not given access to the forgiveness portal, and we started to call Bank of America. And upon calling Bank of America, we, like many other people, began to realize that they were understaffed, that they were not capable of giving you straight answers. There was countless talks of escalation to different people who were going to be the point people, who were going to be your caretaker and understanding what your situation was and getting it resolved. That kind of calling went on for weeks, it went on for months. And at the end of it all, 14 months after the fact, after we had received and spent the funds, we were told 14 months later that the Bank of America had never reviewed our application.
What?
On their website, the forms that we had been submitted had never been adjudicated, and that now, 14 months later, they were saying that we should have never applied for those funds, and as a result of that, they would deny us access to the forgiveness portal because they clearly felt that we should have never gotten the funds, so there could be no forgiveness for it. So you imagine how we felt.
Yeah.
So we challenged that, and that led to a round of now Bank of America looking into our situation and telling us that because they didn't have the right information, they were going to delay the time when we were supposed to start repaying our loans. And so that has now moved from September of last year to December to now it's kicked out till February of 2022.
But let me get this straight. You represent caregivers. You're right.
That's right. We represent caregivers that paid to go into nursing homes and provide them with assistance for those living with a ravaging condition, that of Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia.
And off the top of my head, I would think that because you represent caregivers, first of all, you would be at the top of the list to receive PPP loan forgiveness, if not the loan. Well, obviously, you have to get the loan to get it forgiven. A. B. It sounds to me like Bank of America has made all these calls and you haven't heard anything from the SBA. Am I right?
That is correct. We have talked to the SBA local office, and they have assured us that we would be, if we had gone through the SBA portal, we would have been forgiven. The amount was a modest amount. And unlike yourself, we did not apply for 2 loans. We only applied for 1. And it's the first one that they're hung up with. And what has come to pass is now that Bank of America is capable of spending attention on our account, is I think the interpretation of Bank of America of the SBA rules. And what we've come to understand is that what we were led to believe at the beginning when this whole application process started, which was that we would be applying for a grant from the Small Business Administration, was after we signed the promissory notes changed. It was changed because Bank of America felt that they could not get enough account numbers from the Small Business Administration bureaucracy. And what they decided to do was negotiate with the SBA to put their own money at work and disengage from the bureaucracy of the SBA, which the SBA said fine. But now what they did was they created a program that, using our promissory note, was a contract not with the Small Business Administration, but with us and the Bank of America. We were never told that that was going to happen. And the significance of that is that as we were reading and being told of timeframes and rulings of the Small Business Administration, none of that pertained to the Bank of America because they, in effect, had decided to create their own separate program so that they could put to work idle funds that they could not put out at loans during 2020 when everybody, because of the pandemic, and even now, we're not borrowing monies for cars or for houses or anything like that. Those billions of dollars, which were not being put to work by Bank of America, now found a way to be put to work because the Bank of America took $120 billion of its money, for which it got, depending on the size of your loan, either 3 or 5% immediately reimbursed by the Small Business Administration. They put those funds to work. It was a sweet deal for the bank. But they then reserved the right to decide at the end who would be able to go and ask for forgiveness and who not. Now, their interpretation of the rules of the SBA, and this is the key part, favored the banks situation because they wanted that interpretation to be unambiguously agreed upon by the Small Business Administration. And so the relationship between the Bank of America and the Small Business Administration came about by virtue of Bank of America creating a separate program, stipulated that the Bank of America was going to do everything in its power to make sure that the final rulings that did not occur at the time that we applied for these grants, but much, much later, as Congress and the SBA changed in their interpretation, that final ruling would be abided by. And so the Bank of America says, yes, we guarantee that that's going to be the situation. So 14 months later, after people have signed these grants and these conditions, we're going to make sure that the ones we submit up for forgiveness abide by those final rulings. Well, guess what? That was never stated in the promissory note, nor were we aware of that. And had we been told, millions of small businesses, that the Bank of America was going to create a program independent of what we signed, independent of the Small Business Administration, we would have never accepted the funds. Because what they're saying, in effect, is you can have this house today under these conditions, but guess what? 14 months later, you're going to discover that the house is on kind of shaky foundations and you can't get your money back, you see. And so what they have done, in effect, is they've allowed millions of small businesses to be duped into participating in a program that we had no awareness of, that they decided unilaterally to change. They used their brand and reputation to deceive us. And that, in effect, is what we would call a fallacy of truth in lending. You don't say the truth to create a situation that will allow you to gain money. Now, if Bank of America were a small bank, this would be called predatory loans.
Yeah.
That's what it would be called. But since Bank of America is a very, very large institution, which access to lobbyists and the ability to get across their point of view in the eyes of the SBA, they're able to get away with this to some degree up until now. Many of us have banded together to raise the voice to our congressmen, senators, and congressional representatives, to federal agencies, and to the media, so that this does not go unnoticed. Let me make it absolutely clear. The Bank of America does not incur any risk with this program, because all of these grant loans that they made to small businesses are federally guaranteed.
Yep.
Meaning that the taxpayers will pay for these funds, these loans, no matter what the outcome is. So if the Bank of America does not allow you to have access to the forgiveness portal and chooses to move forward to try to collect from you, with, in addition to the 3 or 5% that they've already gained, another 1% that is that which you perceive. If they move forward with that and you somehow declare bankruptcy or in an ability to pay, they still get their money back because the loans are guaranteed. So why is it that Bank of America has taken such a position? They've taken such a position out of greed. In the beginning, the desire to garner the maximum amount of these federal funds was in competition with other large banks. And what Bank of America wanted to do, even using its idle funds, was to ensure that they got the lion's share of those funds. And they knew full well that they did not have enough personnel inside the bank dedicated to this. In fact, when you call them, that's what they tell you. We put it out very quickly because there were so many people and we didn't have resources.
Yeah, the president said that.
Yes, the president said that. Now, in doing that,
I mean Brian Moynihan, not the president of the United States. I mean the president of Bank.
Yes. In doing that, what they did was they accepted the fact that they were operationally incapable, and they realized that they were going to make some mistakes. Now, you may say that, okay, having made the mistakes, why not be big enough to admit to it? Because the amounts of money that they're probably denying small businesses is small by comparison to the gains that Bank of America made last year. However, you have to understand that, as I stated at some point in this interview, they put at work $120 billion of their own money. And that money, as long as the process is not questioned, is most likely to come back to them in a very short period of time reimbursed by the Small Business Administration. However, if the process is questioned and showing what we're trying to do here as being irregular, that creates a delay upon $120 billion that now the Small Business Administration has to go back and re-examine case by case. And that means they re-examine not only the cases that are denied, but the cases that are approved. And so if you take $120 billion and you freeze that money, that repatriation of money, and the 2 or 3 or 5% monies that they get from the SBA, that means that you have $120 billion not working. And for a bank, money is time. So they are not capable. If it takes a year or 2 years, it may come out very satisfactory for the Bank of America. But all along that time frame, you can do the math and you can see the millions of dollars that they will lose. And that is what this is all about. It's about a bank too embarrassed to say that they screwed up and not wanting for the process to be discovered by federal agencies that even upon inspection over a couple of years may say this is solvable. They don't want to suffer the consequences, especially now that they are seeing a downtime. If you go look at Bank of America stock as of January, you'll see it's falling straight down along with other banks. They simply don't want to have to deal with the added inconvenience of losses that comes about from their misorganization. That's all that's going on here. And so what we're asking the bank to do is to be big enough about it. And we're seeing that as we talk to the bank, they are making accommodations with people. They're actually telling people the Small Business Administration will not forgive you, but we will. We will eat it on our side. That to me says that they realize that their story of saying that you don't qualify because the final rules say you don't qualify does not absolve them of the contractual liability they entered into 14 or maybe a year and a half ago with these people. Because the contract did not state that we would have to wait 14 months to know what the rules were.
I just want to add, or it may be because the SBA paid off my second loan, according to the letter. It may be that the SBA is finally stepping in and cleaning up this mess. I don't know, because in our case, I'll never forget the day that it happened when the PPP loan matter started, and that was in March. And I had just, actually late February, because I had just established Zenny 62 Media's business bank account on February 4th. And Bank of America said, hey, originally, before the PPP loan was created, as you remember, Bank of America was telling us about getting what's called the Emergency Economic Disaster Loan.
The so-called EIDL loan.
Right. And they were telling us like $10,000. And they were saying, go and sign up for it. And I'm in the process of signing up for it. The computer website crashed not once, but twice. And as I'm waiting for what I think is my application on its way, the PPP loan is created. Bank of America says apply for that. So I do. The SBA says apply for that. The application had a box such that if they said if you received your, or the way they said if you have or the emergency loan, the EIDL, okay, basically says, hey, if you put that $10,000 check here and add that, right? I had no logical reason to believe we weren't going to get that loan. And in retrospect, since we received PPP loan 1, 2, EIDL loan 1, there's no precedent for me to believe that we weren't going to receive the EIDL emergency loan to begin with, right? So why in the hell, when they didn't turn around after I got it, combine that, and this is all public information, folks, to get a $23,750 loan for Zenny 62 Media. Then on October 8th, Bank of America calls and says, well, you owe us $10,000. I said, why? Well, you got that from the emergency loan. You weren't supposed to get it. Well, based on what? No one told me that. You guys didn't tell me to sign up for that. This thing's been sitting out there for months. And I reminded the fellow that I said, and you may not have been on the phone, but I'll tell you what, I remember that period of the weekend like it happened yesterday because it was frantic. You had websites crashing, and he stopped me and said, Mr. Abraham, you're right, because I work 24-hour shifts. And I said, yeah, and you guys didn't know what was going on yourself, right? We were all in a panic because it was the pandemic. We didn't know what was going on. Whole cities were shutting down, like Las Vegas and the Strip were empty. And in the middle of that, you're going to tell me you had a cool head and knew, oh, by the way, you're supposed to do this way and that way. You didn't know. He admitted that I was right. So I said, on top of that, I sent you a spreadsheet proving that we paid all of the people that are with us, our contractors. Now you guys change the law and say that I can't count contractors? That's crazy.
Yeah, so they have what you're stating here has been applied inconsistently by Bank of America. So your story is the same story of many other small businesses, but there are some small businesses with the same conditions of either using contractors or getting EIDL loans that don't have that. They have a different outcome. So look, in summary, I think this is what's needed. There has to be a way of Bank of America and the Small Business Administration to come together and save face. Because at the end of the day, the purpose of this thing is to make sure that the United States economy remains strong in the face of an unprecedented pandemic. A pandemic that has not ended, in fact, has gotten worse right now. Yep. And so has subjugated these same small businesses to even more severe conditions. The last thing you want to do at this point in time is to manipulate a program that will make it difficult for these small businesses to survive. It just defeats the whole purpose of this thing. And there's no need for that because these funds are funds that were approved by Congress. Some of them haven't even been spent in its totality, you see. And what we need to do, though, is overcome the bureaucratic disconnects between Bank of America and the SBA. If they architected a program independently, they got to sit down with the SBA and say, okay, we architected it. We said we could do things. It's becoming very difficult for us to do that. So we would like to have your consensus, SBA, to go back to the conditions of the original loans that we approved and get them to understand. If they can do that, they will find a way for both the Small Business Administration and Bank of America to work together, both of them saving face, and more importantly, helping the small businesses. If they don't do that, all we're going to wind up doing is delaying this process, which eventually will lead to the same outcome of finding a way for everybody to come out whole. But it's going to take maybe years. Why do that? So we're asking that. We're even seeing it. The employees at the Bank of America, as you stated, admit to the fact that they recognize that things were put together hurriedly, that they made some mistakes, that they miscommunicated things. They're saying that. They are not shying away from admitting culpability, you see. But they're being told by the senior executives at Bank of America, stay the course, because the bottom line for us is what is important right now. And we got to get them to change that.
We're going to come back and talk more about this. And folks watching, like Erica, hey, come on next time and talk and give updates. And I also reached out to Tony Busby, who's a famed class action lawyer. He wanted me to reach out to one of his assistants. So I'm actually going to take this live stream and share it with him because it speaks volumes to the fact that it's more than just me or you involved in it. We got a gigantic problem. Okay, folks. Hey, thanks for watching. I've got in about roughly 22 minutes, Andy Dolich, who was the either chief operating officer or president of the Golden State Warriors, the Oakland Athletics, and the San Francisco 49ers, and the Memphis Grizzlies, and many other sports organizations during his 50-year tenure. He's going to talk about how the Oakland A's are handling the Howard Terminal situation in Oakland and a ballpark in Las Vegas. I can't wait. Been trying to get my friend on for years. He finally capitulated. Persistence.
Well, thank you for having me on the call,
Zenny. Jose, thanks. Stick around in the background, Jose. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com. That ends this broadcast.